Hello, everyone. Welcome to Festival Fun Facts. You can see that I'm in a different spot right now because you know how it is with tech issues. And so I'll be streaming from my phone. And if we cut out, that's just the way it is. But I'm going to pass it over to Dennis to introduce our lovely judges.
Thank you, Jocelyn. It's a pleasure to have three distinguished New Jersey State Solo and Ensemble Festival adjudicators with us. Amazing musicians, amazing educators, and terrific adjudicators as well. I'm going to introduce them individually, and what I would like to do is ask them to tell us a little bit about who they are and what journeys they've taken to get to this point, especially with regard to the New Jersey State Solo and Ensemble Festival family, so to speak. So I'd like to say hi to Dr. Deborah Confredo, who, by the way, those of you out there in Streamland, is the newly elected president-elect of the National Association for Music Educators. So yay, Debbie. We're thrilled. I'm thrilled to have the president-elect as one of our adjudicators. So congratulations on that. I'll hopefully tell us a little bit about that too.
Thanks, Dennis.
And then Dr. Anna Keiserman, who's one of our piano judges, a faculty member at various universities in the state. And I'll let her tell a little bit more about herself. And then Mr. Wayne Dillon, a longtime adjudicator, a friend of mine from many walks of music education life. So let's go back to Dr. Debbie Confredo. And Debbie, if you mind, if each of you to tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. I'll try to keep this short. You know, as the older you get, the longer your story gets. So I'll just try to keep it kind of short. I've been teaching music for 42 years. I'm finishing my 42nd year, and have been adjudicating for almost all of that time. I think my first adjudication was up in New York State, where I taught for my first 3 years. And that was in my second year of teaching. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. But this is only my second year with Arts Ed New Jersey, and I got to tell you that it was last year was great, and I'm glad I'm back. I started out, like I said, teaching in New York State. Although I'm a Pennsylvania gal, I lived in Norristown in King of Prussia. Although most of my family now has moved to New Jersey, so there you go. And then I came back down to Pennsylvania, taught high school for quite some time in Harrisburg. Went up to Penn State, finished my master's there, and then from there went right down to FSU to do my PhD in music education, although I did spend a lot of time working with the conducting classes down there. And then from there, spent some time teaching at Illinois State University, went down the road to University of Illinois for some time, and then came back home to Temple University, where I'm finishing my 20th year there as professor of music ed. I also developed their online master's program in music education and took my show on the road. So while I'm still teaching for Temple University, my husband and I are now living in Louisiana. So we're doing everything remotely and have been since 2019. I left a couple bands in my wake, and that was very sad, but picked up some other things to do down here in Louisiana. I'm a saxophone player by trade, although just like any band director, and orchestra director, we learn to do a lot of other things too, but primarily sax, and that's what I've been adjudicating for you guys. And how I got involved in it, Dennis, I think you're probably a better person to answer than I. I think Dennis said, "Hey, will you do this?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." And it's just an incredibly enjoyable experience. Yeah.
Jim Shealy. Jim Shealy was our point of contact there.
That's right. It was Jim. You're right. Yeah, Jim's a good friend. Jim and I went to undergrad school, so I've known Jim since 1976. So, and it's amazing because we're only 45. So
there you go. Exactly. I know that sliding scale of age. I just did 45 for the 14th time the other day. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Jim, is another great educator and musician and administrators.
In fact, I asked Jim and his wife to do some guest speaking, and I teach a class in teaching music to students with special needs. So Perfect. The two of them are going to come and do a little guest shot. So
that's great. That's great. And Deb, thanks so much. Let's go to Dr. Anna Keiserman, and let's hear from her and her journey, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm still jumping out when someone calls me doctor. My story is, of course, much shorter. Actually, it's funny. I graduated from the Gnesens Academy of Music, Moscow, Russia, but we were forced to teach. And honestly, when we entered the conservatory, we all were thinking that we will be only solo performance majors. We will never be even thinking about teaching career, but we had to teach from the age something like 16 when we had supervised students and everything, and that's when my teaching career began. After that, I moved to United States and I finished my master's at the University of Minnesota. And I love Minnesota, but it was still too cold. In Russia, it's not too cold. At least in Moscow, it was not like that. So I continued my journey to New York City. And now I'm currently residing in New Jersey. I finished my doctoral degree in piano performance at Rutgers University. And one of the things that honestly I learned as an immigrant, that now I'm very, very grateful for my very tough schooling, that we were actually forced to teach, to collaborate, to accompany, and to do all the other things except of the solo piano, but because that was actually kept me alive through all these years. I was very lucky after graduating in 2019 to become a assistant professor of music at Raritan Valley Community College, Bridgewater, New Jersey. Even, believe me, I was applying everywhere in the country, Alabama, Mississippi, and everywhere you can only imagine. And also, I serve as an adjunct professor at William Patterson University. That's how actually I learned about arts at New Jersey and Dennis, because our colleague in common, wonderful bassoonist Andrea Herr, asked me to join Arts New Jersey. And my experience with this organization is that it's actually a very fun process. It's very interesting to see young musicians growing from different demographics, from different backgrounds, and from different levels of preparation, different levels of talent. But one more time, as an educator that didn't want to be an educator 20 years ago, I learned lots of things and lots of interesting things, how to approach students and how to help them better through the adjudication period, like actually part of the work.
Awesome. Yes, I remember vividly. Andrea, her, and I go again back at different capacities. She was a member of the Colonial Symphony when I was a faculty member of Newark Arts High School, and she would come in and do a lot of master classes with our woodwind students. And we've played together and worked together in various capacities. And she was on board. And I said, I really am looking for the right people to do this festival. And who do you have any tricks in your bag for classical piano? And she, before the sentence was done, she had your name to me. So, and then you helped me with Karina Brook, another one of our faculty members that are now adjudicating for us. So again, it's a networking process and just all connected some way. So thank you so much, Anna, for being a part of this. I'm looking forward to the next level of questions here too. But that leaves us with Mr. Dillon, Mr. Wayne Dillon. Wayne and I go back many different ways, and we continue to work together. Always learned in every capacity from Wayne. And Wayne, tell us a little bit about your journey to get here, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and got my undergraduate degrees at York University in North York, which is a suburb of Toronto. Had the good fortune, had a good friend at the University of Miami. And so I was able to, in 99, come down to Florida and get my master's degree in jazz performance, pedagogy. And that was a terrific experience. I taught in Toronto for 7 years. After I graduated from the University of Miami, I stayed in Coral Gables and actually taught at a Catholic boys high school for 3 years. And after that, I went back up north to Pennsylvania, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania area, and was there for 15 years. And at that time, I started working at Elizabeth High School, and that's one of the connections with Dennis I'll talk about in a second. But I was there and had a terrific run there with that program. Really enjoyed my time there, and just recently retired. So I'm actually moved down to Dunedin, Florida. And my wife and I are loving it here. She's still teaching third grade, and we're having a terrific time. And going back to Elizabeth, Dennis was my supervisor, and we had a terrific time working together. He got us into the Super Bowl. The band played at the Super Bowl. That was a terrific time. Thanks for that, Dennis. And just all kinds of great memories for our time there at the high school. I've been fortunate to get involved with some national adjudication associations. I work for Bands of America as a judge, Drum Corps International and Winter Garden International, and the latter two I've become taken an administrative position in charge of hiring judges, training, scheduling. So that's been interesting to kind of look at the adjudication from that perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. It's a great segue into the next part of my conversation. We didn't plan it before show, guys, but it's great minds think alike. Wayne was integral. Deb and Anna. Wayne was and Jocelyn. Wayne was an integral part of the team we put together when we designed this festival, because of all the things that were being canceled in the state and so many opportunities being taken away from the kids. We researched, Bob Morrison, Arts Ed, we searched for what can we do, and we came up with this virtual festival. Very fortunate to have Wisconsin loan us their repertoire, 11,000 plus titles, and Music for All was helping, and Competition Suites helping. That's all great, but we needed a rubric. We needed to come up with something to be able to adjudicate the kids. So Wayne was a part of the 25-member team from various capacities, mostly teachers, but there were a couple of administrators because I wanted that mindset, that organizational mindset as well. But we had string folks and piano folks and guitars and winds and all jazz, as many different facets of what we offer on the team. And we came up with this rubric, and I want to kind of turn it back over to you guys in a moment. That for those of you watching at home, and I'm hoping some of the students and directors pay attention to this part of it, because it's interesting how to judge music and judge a performance. So we tried to come up with a tool that was efficient and useful for a 6th grade moderate beginner and a 12th grade student who was getting ready for post-secondary studies at perhaps a conservatory. And it's not always easy to do, right? Especially in an 8-minute video, a 6-minute video, right? So we came up with this rubric that's a 30-point tool with 3 categories, tone quality and intonation being 1, technique being the 2nd, and musicianship being the 3rd. I think I have it in the order that's on the sheet, but those are the 3, and they're each worth 10 points. And we thought that each one of the 3 categories should be equally weighted. And that's the rubric for every instrument across the board, for every ensemble, every instrument. And then it's up to the expert, like these 3 folks, to use that language and that tool for the 6th grader who's playing in essential elements and the 12th grader who's playing, the Creston Sonata. So let me turn it back over to you folks, and I guess maybe we'll go in the same order. I'll go to Deb first. So what did you think about using the rubric? Was it a useful tool? How did you manipulate it through the levels?
Yeah, Dennis, first of all, I agree that it's hard, right? So because you have some kids who are really just kind of beginning, and then other students who are ready to, go off and tear the world up in terms of their music performance. So how do you do that? And I think that this rubric works, at least from my perspective, works really well. The tone quality and intonation caption for me, in many ways, is probably the most important thing for wind players, right? And I, this is not just true of soloists, but it's also true of ensembles, where we can get that sound centered and we have a good characteristic sound. Then the intonation often comes along with that, or at the very least, it's not too far off. If we can get that sound centered and sound absolutely beautiful, first of all, it's really wonderful to listen to from a listener's perspective, and I think it's reinforcing for the student. The technique, is a matter of muscle training, and I don't want to diminish it at all. But if you don't have that tone quality, you can have all the technique in the world, and it ain't gonna matter, right? Because I want to hear something, we all want to hear something that's beautiful. And that leads us to the artistry portion of it, the musicianship portion of it. And sixth graders can show musicianship at that sort of entry level in the same way that a almost graduating senior can show it. And I think that, and I would be surprised if my colleagues here would disagree, that we listen to each child from where they are, right? So if they are a beginner, and we know that from the music that they're playing, I don't mean rank beginner, but they're developing. That's a good word for it, developing musician. I'm going to take that 30-point rubric, and I'm going to shift the standard, not by lowering standards, but by shifting it so that it applies to somebody in that category, somebody who's developing musician. So I might assign like a 24 to a child who is developing. Might also assign a 24 to somebody who's getting ready to go to Juilliard. But they have the same implications. How was the tone centered for what they can do, right? Did the technique match what they chose to try to do for us? And then when all those things come together, did the musicianship tell a musical story? And at that point, I'm listening to how somebody's breathing, how somebody's phrasing, the pauses, the moments of rubato, if that's appropriate. The tempo, is the tempo consistent? All of those things. So just kind of to recap, because I want to give everybody else a chance to talk too. For me, when I first started using it, which was a year ago, right? I thought, wow, this is going to be really hard because it's such a small rubric. And when I mean small, it's only a 30-point rubric. And, give me 100 and that'll be even better. But I don't think so. I think that 30 points really helped me to remember that each student is coming to the process from a different starting point, and that was very helpful to me. So I enjoyed working with it, and I think it differentiated relatively well. I do, at least again from my perspective.
Well, I appreciate all that input, and it helped substantiate what you were explaining, some of the things I thought about it, but not having spoken to you about it before. You gave me a couple of ideas. I was taking some notes here about how to reinforce that with some of the other judges as well. So that's great. I appreciate that, Deb. How about Anna? Can I ask you the same?
I really, actually, for me as a performing artist and as a pianist, it's really difficult to make a difference between technique and tone quality in terms of categories, because one is actually connected with another. But I had cases when I had a student, for example, where maybe the tone quality and the technique was not on this perfect 30 points level, but there was the musicianship that was there. So that is why I think it's a great way to... It's very hard for us as a judges and for anyone to compare someone who is preparing one more time for Juilliard and who is 18, 17 years old and someone who is just 12 years old. That's why I think this rubrics works perfectly, and you have a freedom to get the higher grades from your musicianship, for example, compared to technique and tone quality. Then another obstacle, of course, for the piano, that all the students were recording their video tracks at home. And unfortunately, not everyone is so lucky as a pianist, judging myself, who is lucky to have my Steinway, have the Steinway at their home. So this is all the things that you take into the consideration. And at the end of it, I think you can really come up with a fair grade, even if it's like tone quality was not so great, but you're looking that the kid is actually, or the student is performing on the spinet piano. You can see his musicianship and advance his level through that. I honestly really enjoyed also competition suit, because you can actually watch the video, look at the score, and make the comments in the real time, which is very helpful for us as a judges and also helpful for the student, because usually on the competition you receive just the comments from the judges, and this is 2 sentences. This is not such a detailed and thorough feedback for them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, totally. You know what, Anna, too, I feel so silly. I didn't take into account that the instrument that the students may be playing on was such a major variable for piano, probably more so than any other category. And I may have to revisit that with the adjudicators for this next spring festival to take that into account. Because one of the things, and I'll segue into this. One of the things that we tried to do with this festival too was, it had to be a live performance by the student, no editing. And it could be unaccompanied if they couldn't get an accompanist. If it was a live accompanist, they had to show the accompanist, but they also could play to a backing track. But there had to be no mixing or editing because we didn't want to. We tried to make the festival more about the musicianship and the performance than the production. We didn't want the kids, the haves, to have a better production than the have-nots because of video editing equipment. But that's interesting. We'll have to take that into account in terms of the piano. So. Wayne, let's get to you and see what did you think about the tools and the use of them.
I really liked using the rubric. I really was intrigued with what Deb was saying about the paradigms that are created depending on the level of the student and the solo. And it allows the adjudicator to get into some different roles. For example, the teacher, the counselor, the critic. I found myself doing that through the commentary, and the rubric is interesting. I mean, if you study it, you'll see there's terminology that's used. If you kind of compare the boxes, terms like sometimes, often, always, and they pertain to regardless of the paradigm. So if you're doing some of the very early solos of the students that have just started on the instrument, as opposed to almost a professional type of solo, and we heard some of those as well. It still allows you that paradigm and that ability to get in there and look at and use that tool to address whatever level that student was at. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's those descriptors that are on the back of the sheet that qualify the student to be rated in any one of the categories. I hope we're helpful to the adjudicators, and I know they are for me when I adjudicate, to look at the vocabulary. How often did I find myself saying, you often do this, or boy, you were nailing it. You were on this all the time, one way or the other. And that kind of guides your numbers, right? Your management. The other thing I want to remind everybody who's watching and listening at home and us is this isn't it's not a ranking system. We're not putting kids in first through last place. They're being rated against the tool that we're using, the rubric. So we can have, if you have 27 alto saxophonists, 25 of them could be gold medalists, right? Because they're all performing against that rubric. We're not going first, second, third, fourth, fifth place. And we're not concerned with that. It is really about the commentary. Like, Wayne said, the adjudicator hat also includes that insert of educator, right? We're substantiating the work that the teacher's already doing and maybe giving them a different perspective on something to take a look at in the teaching ahead, in the planning ahead. That's great. That's great feedback, guys. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, and Anna, go back to you. You were mentioned the oral commentary being in the moment, right, and live and that kind of thing. Listening to various judges. Not everybody quite did it that way. Some judges listened to the recording once and then went back and did it live. See, and then some folks listened to everything and then gave like a 5 or 6 minute. So again, the input was important and consistent, but it was just a manipulation of how it was given. Yeah, I know you want
another plus of these rubrics that you just mentioned, that there is no first place, second, and third. Especially after coming back today after judging a competition, when you really need to find a first place winner, second place winner, and third place winner, it's really tough. Because someone playing very flashy and very technically advanced repertoire, and of course it makes the biggest impression on you, and you're judging this person against, I don't know, Prelude and Fugue or Toccata and Fugue by Bach, which is not so flashy, but in terms of technical and musical involvement is much more difficult piece. And this rubrics provides us with the possibilities to give all these rankings to different kids in the different levels without thinking about their repertoire. It can be very big variety, starting from Bach Minuet and ending with the someone whom I listened was playing Second Ballade by Chopin.
Gotcha. And that's important. I appreciate you saying that again, and you're reaffirming what Deb and Wayne had said. And this is especially for my brothers and sisters out there who are middle school or teaching beginners at the high school level. It's okay for a 10th grader who's in, the second Sound Innovations book to go ahead and record themselves a video and submit and be commentated and receive commentary from one of the three of you or one of our other adjudicators, just to substantiate the work that they're doing. It doesn't have to be a concerto movement or a sonata movement. Deb, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back to what Anna said about, the speaking in the moment. And, of course, during the pandemic, a lot of things changed, obviously. And some may be looking at, some folks out there maybe saying, well, it's a recorded adjudication. It's not live. It's, that kind of thing. From my perspective, well, let me stop. I got my studio teacher on when I did this, right? It's like, oh, cool. I'm going to get my saxes set up and I'm going to just kind of listen and then I'm going to teach. And, much to the chagrin of some of the students, I think, because my commentary went on for, in some cases, more than 10 minutes. But using the recording, I think one of the beauties of using the recording is that you can stop and start it. Now, my process was I would always listen to every student all the way through first, just to get an idea, And frankly, one of the things I loved about each recording was especially the younger students who would introduce their piece, and they did extra work and they talked about what a partita was or whatever it happened to be. It was just so it was wonderful. So there's some good teaching going on out there, I think. Then I would listen all the way through, and then I would go back and play it again, introduce myself, and say, "Hey," to the student, "Forgive me, but I'm going to start and stop as we're going along because I know there's going to be things that I want to talk about, but I don't want to talk over your performance." So, and that's what I would do. I would stop the recording, and it would be playing in the background so that they could hear where they were, and then I'd have my horn there, and if it was something that I could demonstrate better than I could articulate through words, I would do that. And so for me, that was one of the nicer things about using a recording in real time. And Anna, you're right. I just got back from North Dakota. I listened to 28 bands, full ensembles up there. And we had, there's 15 minutes on stage and you're talking as much as you can. And as you're speaking, you're missing things. And you write a couple things down, but then you're on to the next one. So, and there's value in that too. There's great value in that. So, I don't know. I just appreciated the format. I really did.
Cool. And on the other side of this equation, the students and teachers so far have been really over the moon about the fact that they can download your commentary now and the rating sheet that you gave them and work from that. It's not like you said, a lot of the festivals, you get a sheet, you get a number, and see you next year. But and I understand the reasons for all of that, and you can't. But the pandemic, in our particular case, has given us the luxury of being able to do this, right? So, and again, Deborah and Anna, Wayne knows this as an educator in New Jersey. We don't have a solo festival here. That kind of we have region and all state festivals that students audition on a given solo piece, like everybody plays the same solo, but then they receive a number and they're placed in an ensemble. So there's no feedback, there's no oral feedback from the judge. It's just a number and an ensemble assignment, and that's not really celebrating the solo accomplishment, so to speak, right? And then there's no freedom up to what solo you can pick. I mean, we have 11,000 titles that Wisconsin has shared with us, but students are allowed to go outside of that as well. We had students do, original compositions this year, and we're introducing modern band and Latin ensembles, and so it's really been great so far, and I appreciate your input with this. So let's. I'm not sure where Jocelyn is. I hope she's okay. I know that she disappeared from the screen, and she's supposed to be running this. So we're flying solo here, guys. Let's talk about those of us watching at home. We know, and hopefully some of the kids that have already registered in the last couple of days will be tuning in. What kinds of advice? This is where I really want to pick your brains. You've watched a couple of hundred videos between this and probably thousands in the last year, and traveling to North Dakota and New York City now. And I know Wayne's been all over the country as well these last several weeks. What in our format, given the circumstances, students have no time minimum, right? But there's an 8-minute time maximum, wide range of repertoire selections. But what kind of advice can you give the kids to prepare for these video submissions, to put off their best selves? I'm gonna go in inverse order this time and start with Wayne, if that's okay.
Thanks, Dennis. I just jotted down a couple of notes. My first thing would be preparation. I think it's the key component, to allow yourself time to prepare and kind of have a sense of what it is you're playing, what might be the challenges. Dennis mentioned the time frame, and get a sense of working backwards and with how much time you might have, because we're all busy and we're all doing different things. And I find with these types of festivals, it's usually that student that's involved in a lot of things. They're doing this. These are our overachievers. These are our tomorrow's leaders that we're seeing at these festivals. And so again, it's a question also of time management and understanding how much time you have, what's involved with the solo, and how am I going to best prepare that. More specifically, once you're in and you've kind of come to terms with that, how do you break it down? What do you work on? Do you spend most of your time on the more maybe technical parts? Is it expression? Is it a dynamic range that you're trying to convey? Is it tone, like Debbie talked about? So understand what are the fundamentals and focus on those things. Focus, even taking a section, maybe the hardest thing, identify what the skill level is and what you're struggling with. Maybe it's double tonguing, and isolate the double tonguing. Maybe you're isolating the glottal, the ga syllable in your throat, and to work on that. So the only time you're double tonguing shouldn't be only in the solo, if that makes sense. So it gets back to the fundamentals, and Debbie was talking about that. Because we're doing this on video, evaluate yourself. I remember doing this type of thing, and I would do a few runs, and then I would go back and watch it and evaluate it and say, is this the one I want to submit? And oftentimes I would say no. And I would map it out, create some time the next day and go at it. And it's amazing how much, if you give yourself that latitude, and that's part of your preparation, time management, how much better you'll be that next day when you didn't hit the submit button. So those are some things I think that could help you out.
Yeah, that's great. And feedback from the directors, because I surveyed the adjudicators after last year's festival as well. I also surveyed the kids and the directors. One of the things the directors did enjoy was they found that not all, I won't paint with too broad of a brush, but they really loved the fact that students were being more discerning and critical of their own selves, taking these multiple takes and picking the ones. And a lot of the teachers loved it because they were practicing over and over again. But point well taken, Wayne, for sure. How about let's go to Debbie, and then we'll go to Anna for her insight on preparation.
Yeah, I would say yes, and yes to everything that Wayne said. All that is great, really great advice. One of the things that I might add to that is it kind of goes along with what Wayne said about multiple takes, if you were. Have a little audience at home. Play for your friends and family, your dog, your cat, whoever. Have somebody else in the room and give a little concert. It kind of puts you in that mindset that you're giving this gift to someone, and it's like a microcosm of what we would do at that next step, taking it to a stage, right? sometimes when we're playing simply for recording, it can be kind of almost you almost disassociate with why you're doing it, so and I do a lot of recording with my husband, and we have a studio, and sometimes you just want to have other people there, to give it that feeling, so that might help as well. The other thing too, and this, Wayne, you kind of jogged my mind when you said this about, what are the things that are involved in that piece of music that you've selected that, are going to be the places that are going to require the most amount of effort and time. And that would be, take a good look at several pieces of literature before you make that decision. Because you once you grab that piece of lit and now you've worked on it and you haven't looked ahead, you may feel like you're stuck. And I don't have time now to get something else that's going to be a little bit more suitable for what I can do. And that's something actually that can be done together with the director, right? The teacher, to help make that decision. And I guess and I could go on and on, but I won't. One of the final things I'll say is, to find heroes, to find performance heroes, right? So if I'm a clarinet player, find a clarinet hero so that I can listen to that person, maybe even play exactly what I'm playing, right? If you're an oboe player, a trumpet player, a sax player, whatever. Especially, I think it's especially important. It's all important for everybody, even us. But for young people who may not know who the big names are in that area of performance, that's where the teacher is going to really come in and play a critical role. Help that child to find, who's doing the best work out there. I remember this past winter, there was one little guy, sixth grader, I think. I forget what they were playing, and I thought, I wonder if there are any recordings of this. And I just scoured YouTube, and there's some teacher out there who was teaching that exact same tune to their kids, and she played it, and it was a great recording. I wouldn't call her the best sax player in the world, but she was really pretty good, and it was a good model. So, and I don't have any problem at all with listening to these tunes in advance so that you have a model in particular for the musicianship piece of it, right? That I think, Wayne, you use the word expression. Sometimes that's a little bit elusive to, especially to younger players. So that's I guess the final piece of advice that I would offer.
And that's what makes the Wisconsin Library. I'm back. Hi guys. But that's what makes the Wisconsin Library, and on my computer, wonderful. I found it. It's great. But that's what makes the Wisconsin Library so great too, is that it has such diverse pieces, and then has some pretty famous pieces and some lesser known pieces. And so it's very broad, and so students can spend hours on there looking around, checking out what they like, and that's why it's very valuable. Like, I totally agree with you, Deb, that you go and you should listen to it beforehand to understand what you're going to be engaging with. It's not even what you're going to be reproducing, because it's going to be different, but it's what you're engaging with. Absolutely.
Very cool. Thank you, John. Anna, what have you got for our pianist world in the ensemble?
From the pianist perspective, honestly, I learned so much even after listening the first two recordings of the festival participants, because first time in my life teaching a private studio at home, then at the university, I asked myself a simple question: how my students sit with the piano when they practice? And this is the question that actually I never did before. And after the observing certain videos, we're talking about proper position of the hands. We're talking how to hold clarinet, saxophone, trumpet, please forgive me, everything. But we're not talking simple things, how to sit with the piano. And we're not talking enough of it that actually your posture can really influence straightforward your performance. If you're sitting too high, too low. This was one of the lessons that I learned for myself from that. Another thing, if that I can say for the future participants, is really to think smart about your repertoire choices. One more time, because this is such a great rubrics that allows us to compare absolutely different pieces. It doesn't matter if it's Ballade by Chopin No. 2, or Clair de Lune, or even the simple Minuet by Bartkiewicz. It's the same musical approach. Please do try to find a repertoire that really is accessible to you in terms of your understanding. Because lots of students, when I talk to them, and actually with even Raritan Valley community college students, I discover a phenomenon that the students, when they're looking at the score, they're looking at the notes, but they're not looking at the everything which is behind the notes, which is actually more important. Articulation, some kind of stupid slurs, some kind of other markings in some kind of weird languages that they don't know. But try to absorb all the score and find really piece that you can express yourself. Another thing that one more time helped me through the festival to understand, even for myself as a performer, if you have a recording project that, for example, is happening, I don't know, let's make it May 1st. Do your first recording on the April 7th, the latest. Then give yourself one more week, practice it, listen to it, understand your own mistakes, and then do one more, and then do one more. And then by the 1st of May, you will have really big pool of the recordings that you can choose, but you can see how you grow up as an artist. Mm-hmm. For myself as a pianist, when I'm preparing a solo program, what I'm doing at home, my poor cats and dogs, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting and playing the whole program through, even if it's like 1 hour and a half of music, and I'm making lots of mistakes. And I can be also having some memory slips, or I forgot articulation, or it was not musical, but I'm keep going. And after you keep going for 3-4 times, like every, 4 or 5 days, you build up certain kind of stamina and certain kind of ability to think in advance. And that's how you avoid your own mistakes. And this logic can be approached to any piece, 3 minutes long, 5 minutes long, 4 minutes long. But one most important advice, guys, never put it on the last night. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, procrastination is not your friend in this endeavor, for sure, right? And it's great advice. I mean, I think the word preparation might be, the overarching message here. Preparing yourself and your own schedule, preparing your audio, your video, preparing obviously the music, preparing how to select the music, right? Most of these folks come so well supported. A lot of the parents reach out, the students reach out. I get tons and tons of emails, which I love. Keep them coming, and text messages. I love the communication. But during this program, I'm answering texts and questions about the festival registration from teachers who are concerned about their kids. And so there is a support group, there is a foundation there. But the scary thing for the kids is it is a solo, right? It is them being judged, adjudicated. So, but you're right. I think the more you prepare, every layer of that, the angst, the anxiety may dissipate to some extent. And I love, Debbie, I love your idea as well, and Anna, about you're starting a month early and adding that influence of an audience, adding that extra dimension that you can take away. And then the discernment that Wayne was talking about really breaking down. And this is substantiating what the teachers are saying, right? And like we do, all three of you are practicing musicians. I know in your studio, you've got some 4-bar phrase that's circled, and that's what you're going to start on tomorrow after you warm up. That's the phrase, right? God knows I do. So I think that's wonderful. I'm hoping that the kids listen and take the advice that we've all given here tonight. Jocelyn, do you have something else for our adjudicators? Let's try to hear questions from me.
There's just I feel bad because I was listening. I had you guys on my phone the whole time, and you guys are all so articulate, and it's so wonderful to hear your perspective on it, because it's rare that you get to hear the judge's perspective except for through the one-on-one of the advice that you get back after you perform, and that's a whole other different dynamic than advice beforehand. I wanted to comment that the rubric is super broad, but not in it brings you back to the basics. And I think, Debbie, you mentioned that earlier, and you said that it brings you back and it points to what exactly you want to focus on. And so I think that's really cool because it offers a lot of diversity and a lot. It's also very comprehensive. And another thing here. And then it's also interesting. Something that Wayne said earlier was that you get to record it, and that's something that you've been focusing on a lot throughout this. And it's very valuable because this is a very unique festival. I've been talking a lot about it because I've been going to tables a lot because it is Arts in Our Schools Month. And I've been talking a lot to students as I hype up this festival, and I say, hey, definitely go sign up. Registration's still open. Get there, go do it. I say it's like an in-person festival. All the things that we loved and we missed from it, it's exactly like that because it has just as high caliber. It has as great judges. It has a great rubric. All of it is very comprehensive and has so much love put into it, but it's virtual. And so it offers a lot of really great opportunities. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time. And you guys have been just showing your prowess as judges. And it makes me excited, even though I'm not even a performer in this. It makes me excited to perform in it. And so it's really, really great to hear all of your perspectives. I think we went over advice. Did we talk about what our strengths and weaknesses were when we were judging? What are things that we noticed about ourselves in our judging?
I didn't ask them that, but I'll leave that to you.
Okay, well, that's something that I think could be. I know that's a lot. I know you all have a lot of experience with it, but I think that would be really interesting to hear because it would help even the students understand how to judge themselves better and judge their judging of themselves, like Wayne said when reviewing your pieces. So anybody can start.
I'll start. The very first year I did it, I felt like I was looking at the music. I was listening to them play in real time. And I felt like I had so much information that I wanted to give them, and I couldn't quite do it. So the next round, I did what Deb was saying. I would go through all of the solos. I would watch them all and listen to them and formulate my thoughts on them. And so I felt that the discussion about the solo flowed in a much better manner, and I was able to, give specific things in the solo, whether it be a rehearsal number so I was more comfortable with that whole process because there's so much information you can give. And the other thing I like to do is at the wrap up at the end, if there's anything that you felt like you didn't want to spend too much time on this because you're doing it in real time, you can certainly address that at the end in the recapitulation when you're talking about all of the concepts or maybe things to think about going forward.
Good, Anna.
I'm as a performing pianist one more time. First of all, I hated all this Zoom world and online world. I really missed the feeling of the public when you're going on stage, you're preparing one concert, another one, project or something. But actually with the competitions, one more time, what I witnessed, for example, today, we had a wonderful boy who is 14 years old. So you can imagine he doesn't have a huge performance experience. He was playing nonetheless Pathetic Sonata by Beethoven. And he was playing some ragtime by Scott Joplin, because it's a Gershwin international piano competition, so he has to prepare something American. And you can see that this boy, he just got scared on stage. And you understand this because even as me as a musician now, I'm still walking on stage as an unknown territory. After being with microphones or whatever, you do not have the capability of controlling your nerves. And the kid didn't play so well, but you can still see his potential and you can see the amazing work of his teacher. He was just rushing everything through. And this is the things that actually online festivals and online competitions can provide us with the extra tool, even when we are back to the normal after COVID way, because you can record yourself, you can present yourself in your best and still have an opportunity. Another question, as I know, there are lots of musicians who have really performance stage fright. Can we just cut them off from the older perspective of the great, I don't know, recording artists. How many years Glenn Gould never performed in the public? I don't know. So I think COVID taught us to combine all these things together, and it can bring performing arts to another level through this kind of collaborations. And please understand me correctly, I hate online concerts. But it provides students, especially in this case. When I was listening to this kid today, I was so upset. I was upset for the whole world that he just didn't have experience. How to put him together and how you can have this experience at the 15 years old. So that's why I think all the opportunities that you, Dennis, create, it's amazing. And the whole rubrics that allow one more time to judge all of the students on the same level, not thinking about their repertoire choices, but actually on their musicality, their technique, and their sound production.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate it. How about you, Debbie? You want to share?
Yeah, let me take, Jocelyn, your question and come at it from maybe a little bit of a different angle, if I may. And this I'm hoping it may help any prospective students who are thinking about jumping in the deep end here. And I like to talk a little bit about how I prepare myself before I go into an adjudication. I always want to remind myself that let me do it a different way. When I teach undergraduates, these are pre-service teachers. I always have them do a shoe tying exercise. Now, what does that have to do with music? Nothing, except that we've been tying our shoes forever. So they tie their shoes 2 or 3 times, and then I tell them to write a task analysis as far as how you would teach somebody how to tie their shoes, and they can't do it. It's not because they can't, but it's because it's been so far from when they had to think of each tiny little step, right? So I use that analogy to remind myself that I've been a musician for most of my life, and when we get students who perform for us, they're coming to us asking for our help, right? And I have to remind myself that you were there at some point in time, right? And the way to underscore that is if I pick up a different instrument that I haven't played in a long time, I am right back in their shoes, right? And so it gives me some humility to be able to listen to them and understand where they're coming from, and also it helps me to couch what I'm saying so that I hope it's positive and not just catching mistakes, but did you hear that? Here's how we can make that better, right? So catching something with a teaching technique, which is what all of my colleagues here do, and I'm sure what their own personal teachers and their directors do as well. So that's how I prepare myself, which is it goes all the way back to the first question you asked, Dennis, about the rubric. That's what allows me to use that very same rubric for every child who is at a different level. It's how I come to that the task of adjudicating them. So anybody out there who's thinking about doing this, we are emblematic of every one of these adjudicators that works with arts ed. How do I know that? Well, I went on the website this year and I listened to other adjudicators, and I'll tell you what, I was so amazed and happy to be part of this crew. You've got some good folks who are working on behalf of all these young musicians in New Jersey. So if you're thinking about doing it, all you students out there, I would absolutely do it. It's just a great experience.
Thank you so much for that, Deb. We're really proud of the folks that are on board. I mean, when I tell my colleagues and the various walks of life, you say you got that person to judge concert. Jeff Grogan came back to judge some orchestras, and I can go on. And you could go to the website and we release our adjudication staff, and nobody's getting rich on this endeavor. I'm sure you can see by the smiles. I'm not even going to say what these folks are not getting paid, and to hear them say, "Oh yeah, listen to that recording 2-3 times," I'm like, "Oh my God, I couldn't even think about paying you for that." But it's really for the love of what you do, and the kids, right? It's all about giving back to these kids and the legacy to leave behind. So hopefully someday they're in your seats talking about how you influenced them, and they're doing it for the next generation. So we're so thrilled to be back for the spring event. Like I said, we're looking to expand. We have Little Kids Rock with us this year now, doing some modern band. We had a bunch of groups coming out of a high school in Jersey City, kids composing their own material. My heart was filled this past fall when a young middle school student from Passaic composed a piece for his string orchestra at his G&T school. So the orchestra entered in their category for performance, but he asked if we had a composition category. We didn't. But I said, go ahead and enter. And I got a key poll on Wayne, gave him a commentary on his composition, right? I mean, so here you have Key, one of the prolific composer, arranger, providing commentary for a middle schooler in Passaic on his composition. So this is the kind of stuff, the beautiful stuff that is not in the fore, but we hope that it all makes a difference down the road. Listen, thank you, all three of you, again, for being with us this evening and helping us bring to light what goes on in the inners of Competition Suite. That these are real people with real lives, giving you great commentary and all this life experience and musical experience. And Jocelyn and I are going to wrap it up.
I was just about to wrap it up as well. So pretty good timing. I wanted to add one more thing about the competition in general, and then I wanted to talk about some things that are coming up for Arts at NJ in general. But I wanted to say that the judges are here to help you, to the students. They're here to adjudicate you and show you what, from their experience, what they know. If that wasn't clear from this stream, then I don't know what we imparted, because that felt pretty clear to me from this stream. Which means that when you're judging yourself and you're streaming and your videos, you should be trying to help yourself instead of tearing yourself down. And so I definitely want to mention that, because I've been talking to so many students and they say they can't do things, and I'm like, you definitely can. Look at you, you just did it, and you can keep doing it. And so that's what we're all here pushing, is that we want you to do it, and we're excited when you do. And so now moving on to like more boring, well, this is all exciting stuff, but I'm going to be a little bit more boring about it. But so some things that are happening next week, we're going to be skipping a week for Festival Fun Facts. We're going to be doing the Arts Educator Roundtable. There is still the ability to sign up for that. It's closing soon, but definitely go check that out if you're an arts educator and you're curious about being on a roundtable with other arts educators. And then after that, on the 30th, we're having our last Festival of Fun Facts for the year, and that is going to be about the submission process, which will be very interesting and very informative for those who are still a little worried about what they're submitting. And so we'll talk about that, and then definitely check out our social media. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram under Arts at NJ, and check out our YouTube. You're obviously on this one more than likely. And then we also have other ones for NJGAAE, which is Governor's Awards, and some other things. So definitely go onto our website, check that out. And that's also where you will find a lot of the information about the Solo Ensemble Festival that we're talking about tonight. So thank you very much, everyone. And I'm sorry for not being as present as I typically am. I'm so glad that Dennis is as amazing as he is. And he was able to just take it and go with it. And it was like a throwback to last year when he helmed the ship himself.
It was the inverse, and you saved me when my internet went out. So
yeah. So I hope everyone has a great night. I hope everyone has a very safe night, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.